Uh, hello, hello, everybody. This is the first Q&A session we're having today with Dr. James Stalker. Dr. Stalker is a renowned atmospheric scientist. He is also an entrepreneur, philosopher, computer scientist, and many other attributes. But Dr. Stalker has got a new concept that he's unveiling to the world called the enterprise universe. And today's Q&A session is to really talk to Dr. Stalker about what is the enterprise universe, what it's all about, and just give us a grounding of what the concept is. So just to start off, Dr. Stalker, what is the enterprise universe?
Well, thank you, Eamon. Appreciate the intro there. Well, the enterprise universe, in my mind, is probably the largest business brand anybody could come up with, including myself. So this is by far the best brand I could ever build, even though I'm a serial entrepreneur. So I think the origins for this it really came from my own way of thinking about systems. So in mathematical theory, there is what's called set theory, in which you have a superset and a lot of subsets. So once you understand the superset, you kind of unravel the subset from that. So there are some linkages. So you don't have to really keep track of each and every subset. And with that notion, as an entrepreneur since 2002, I started multiple companies, but without understanding what a superset might look like in the business world. So that really gave rise to the enterprise universe. So which is really the superset of any of the businesses we could see globally.
So would the enterprise universe include customers and partners, or just companies that you have direct control over?
You know, in the universe, customers are a part of it. They are within the bubble, essentially, not in a legal sense, but because the enterprise universe serves the customers and their needs, and they are the focus of the entire universe. So they are part of it, including our customers, vendors, and strategic partners, and everybody else. They will be within it. And there is no real desire to control anything, because the structure I see within the enterprise universe as horizontal as possible, where cooperation is more important than competition, and helping people, mentoring, and so forth. They are all rewarded for their attributes also along those lines. But customer is really the main focus for the enterprise universe. In addition to that, Eamon, I'm really thinking about developing my own technologies within the company, within the enterprise universe, but I'm also going to bring others from outside into that bubble. So the way I think about it is, you know, today's outside businesses are tomorrow's insiders at some point, because of the vision that I have. And when I present it to other businesses, or when they come to learn about what we do, they really want to be part of it simply because of what it stands for.
So basically, I like the concept of the bubble, and it's kind of expanding, but I presume some entities can be coming in and out of that bubble as over time as well, presumably.
That is correct. And the idea for this is not to grow big, not to grow small. That growth is really not important, but creating the value and the quality of businesses inside and outside interacting with one another, but never to lose focus of who they are serving, the clients. So from that perspective, the expansion could go either way, but that's really not the focus.
And what is the mission of the enterprise universe then?
Well, you know, one of the things I really kind of harp on for entrepreneurs, those who are starting to put businesses together, is to really learn and focus on what I call purpose. And obviously, the idea is so simple, but it really takes a lot of time. In my own example, even though I had been an entrepreneur since 2002, the idea came only in 2018 when I said I really needed to put my purpose in writing. And that slogan or the tagline for the enterprise universe is spreading goodness through innovation. So that's really the purpose of the enterprise universe and all of the member businesses within the bubble and outside the strategic partners outside the bubble.
So then purpose is really the key then, I guess, to the whole idea. And I saw that you had this it, as I remember, it's like spreading goodness through innovation. Um, is that the purpose of the enterprise universe? Would you say?
It is the purpose of the entire universe that as I build, and it happens to be my personal purpose too, which I was practicing way before when I started this company in 2018. But since 2002, first looking at renewable energy for wind forecasting products and then solar products and so forth, and the invention that I have on the load creating renewable energy technology. Also, through all of that effort, I was pursuing that purpose without actually putting that in writing. So that's my personal purpose too, but I'm making sure that it's the purpose of the enterprise universe and all of its partners and the member businesses inside.
So why did you come to the conclusion that writing it down was the most important thing for an entrepreneur? Because most of us don't actually write down, really have that clarity. So why is it so important, do you think?
I will tell you this from experience, Eamon. I have never taken notes in my classes in my entire career because I always really kind of detested that idea because I could really hold a lot of information in my head throughout my entire student career. But I cannot emphasize the importance of writing your purpose down and making sure it's no more than five or a half a dozen or so words because you don't want to have them too many of them, but try to write it down and have many versions, and in the end you would know when it clicks. It clicks. You know exactly what you are talking about, what you're trying to do, and putting that in writing is really the best way to cement the deal.
Right. Okay. So it's really about clarification for yourself first, and then clarification for your customers and your partners second. Would that be true? Because it's just that like you're so passionate about this idea. For most people, the vision is just words, and they're not lived. They're just kind of like so. But you seem to be so much more passionate that this is the key to the whole equation. I'm just querying about like it's more than just words. Then it's something deeper than just something that hangs up over the door of the building.
It is definitely more than words. It really reflects, who you are, why you are in this business, essentially. So, for example, in any business, entrepreneurs may succeed or fail. It happens. But when you have this purpose and you're working harder than ever in your life, 15 hours, 20 hours sometimes, it seems like, when you're doing that, your purpose drives you. Even if you fail, you would say that's a meaningful failure. I haven't actually failed in what I tried to do because of my purpose. So, having said that, it does really help you in achieving clear and realistic goals also. It's really not a pie in the sky idea. It helps you, it helps your customers, it helps your employees, and it's really way of telling the world what you really are in this business for. And that's really, I mean, it takes a lot of effort to really come to those 4 or 5 words that really click with you and your vision and your purpose. But it's really important. I cannot emphasize more on the importance of having that, because that's really, here is something else, Eamon. Ever since I did that on the 1st of March in 2018, I remember the exact day, uh, all of my stress, as a business owner, trying to, drum up some business here and there and try to really unturn every stone, uh, that really has gone away, simply because I'm doing much better now. I don't really have the stress because I know what I'm trying to do, what my purpose
Yes.
is. I mean, there are lots of other factors, but that's an important cornerstone of what you want to do as a businessman.
So that's almost like a spiritual thing then, man. It's kind of like you've gotten some centering around what your goal in life is, in a sense, or at least this is an aspect of your goal in life, I guess, is this purpose.
It does. I mean, I don't want to get into that aspect as a
Spirituals, right? Yeah.
philosophical underpinning, but yes, it does clarify what you're trying to do. Because, for example, Eamon, you and I have seen a lot of business people out there, and they're chasing stuff, for business, and sometimes they're trying to cut deals, and they're cutting corners, and all kinds of things. And in the end, even if you succeed, you feel like you haven't really achieved a
Yeah.
whole lot. You feel empty inside. Or if you failed, you feel miserable because you wasted all that hard work and nothing has panned out. But with this purpose anchoring you, even if it's not success for the short term, you're not going to feel like you have wasted a lot of your time, and that stress on you is going to go away. So that's really the reason why it's so important for entrepreneurs.
Right. And I think, speaking for myself, it's kind of shocking how few of us have that clarity, to be honest. We're just kind of plugging away, you know. It's like there's I would be certainly, speaking personally, I wouldn't say that I have that kind of clarity, and I'm kind of intrigued by it because I'm wondering about the words, those words like what is goodness, what is innovation in your mind, and spreading goodness through innovation, what that actually means is kind of, you know, there's potentially a lot of unpacking there around
There is, each word is important, as you could tell from those 4 words. So I'll briefly touch on that. So spreading, in my view, kind of relates to the concept of the universe. The universe is ever expanding. So spreading really kind of relates to that. When I say spreading, I'm talking about an effort within the enterprise universe, not used just for internal purposes, for profit motivation or whatever edge you want to gain over your competitors, but giving it out to your customers, not only in this country, but everywhere else. That's really what it means by spreading.
So
Spreading.
it's got a connotation of it's giving away in a sense, or more, or a propagating, because a lot of folks think are very like it's not really a having mentality, it's a growing mentality, I guess. Is that a fair statement?
It is growth for sure, but the purpose behind the
Yes.
growth is not for internal achievements.
Right.
It is for giving it to others what you have. So that's
Right.
where the goodness part comes into play. So spreading is, physically speaking, similar to the universe, which is
Right.
expanding, ever expanding, I would say, not, although we do not really have clear understanding of what the rate is. But put that aside, that's spreading, physically speaking, the universe is spreading too, the enterprise universe, but not, the purpose is not to accumulate something for you within the bubble, but give what you develop for everyone in the world.
And as a matter
So
of
that's
fact, that
what I
kind of
mean by goodness.
that 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 kind of opens my mind a bit to kind of like this vision would be good in 3100 if we were out in the outer solar system or we were on other planets or solar systems. I guess the purpose is the same irrespective of where you are in the universe. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
That's absolutely true. And although, Eamon, I really appreciate that thought, it's really not that complicated if you think about it.
Right.
Really, you know, in the olden days when people got into business, they really had this idea. They were there for, to serve the community, the mom and pop stores, they were trying to, uh, provide the goods that their communities needed and so forth. They weren't thinking about the profit. That was really kind of came later on when you try to maximize your earning potential and so forth. But at what expense? Is it at the expense of what you really are in the business for? If that is the case, you really have your purpose wrong. So you really have to think about the purpose first, not maximize profit, cut corners, and all kinds of things that came on later on.
And I think that's kind of interesting, honestly, as it relates to it feels like there's humanity is a central concept to that. Because I think when I was saying a little earlier, oh, we could be on Jupiter, there it was kind of a physical. I was relating it to as a kind of a universe as a physical thing, but it's very much feels like you're saying it's also grounded in human relationship, and is that a true statement? Just am I taking the right thing out of what you just said about communities and stuff?
You are. So let's put this in the right context. In the physical world, with the planets and the galaxies and everything else,
Mm-hmm.
I think human beings have a special place in that universe. Physically speaking, they are mass, and they got energy. They'll transform into different states and so forth, but they have a special status in this universe. So it is about humans. So if you take that away from the physical universe, there isn't a whole lot to discuss other than the planets revolving and colliding and changing the mass into different energy states and so forth. Those are the physical aspects of the universe. But
Mm-hmm.
in the enterprise universe, the enterprise itself refers to what humans do, not
Right.
some physical body does. It's really about humans coming together, trying to produce products and services in the service of your
Others.
customers.
Right.
And the
Right.
profit becomes more of a secondary byproduct, essentially, not the main thing that you really are after. So if you're after money as a business person, your purpose has to be rethought.
Yeah, and I know you've got, and we can get into this in a later Q&A, but I know you have concepts that money, there's something beyond money as a mechanism for growing for the enterprise universe, or that perhaps money is just a phase we're going through right now, this monetary phase of development. So I think it would be really interesting. So I guess what you're saying, I guess what I'm hearing is that money in and of itself cannot be an objective per se of the enterprise universe. It's this goodness thing. And yes, money or profit might be a byproduct, but it's only balanced against whether or not the true purpose, which is to do the goodness piece. Is that a fair statement?
It is for me and for the enterprise universe. Obviously, not every business person has to have the same purpose. They could define their own purpose. If it happens to be money alone, which is something that I would not recommend, but if it is, then they will have to figure out how everything else fits into that puzzle. But that's a different thing that we're not really talking about here. For the purpose that I have for the enterprise universe, impact becomes more of the centerpiece. That's really the focus.
So
And
kind of,
achieving that impact through spreading goodness through innovation and money coming as a byproduct, really. So
so in those three words, spreading goodness, innovation, goodness is the core objective, if you will. And I think we can discuss a little bit. And I guess and then you've got the spreading piece, but we haven't yet talked about innovation and what your thoughts are on, like, what is innovation? Like, what is innovation in your mind?
Well, Eamon, as a technologist, I really started with the innovation part. So
Mm-hmm.
to me, innovation is doing something differently than what has been done uh, for the better. Like if it's a better design or better theory or better strategy, those are all innovations. They don't have to be scientific in nature. Social innovations, economic innovations, and technical
And
innovations. These are all innovations, and that's something that I would like to do within the enterprise universe and all of the members within that business.
right, and actually, you're hitting on something that has been bothering me recently, which is the whole idea that it feels like at least the Silicon Valley perspective sometimes is like innovation and disruption are ends in themselves. There isn't the goodness and the spreading aspect. And it's I think what you're saying is that innovation with not that isn't tethered to some concept of goodness could be a dangerous thing. Is that a fair statement?
It could be dangerous, but it could also be futile simply because you're not anchored. So I'm a disruptor myself, by far the probably the significant disruptor in the weather and climate world
Right.
with the recent revelation of the Stalker method. But the way I disrupt Eamon, I try to have backward compatibility with what has been done already. So there is that transition from what we have to where we're going also. So you have to make sure of that. And of course, guided by goodness part, which is really the key here, because like I said, you could end up being very successful financially, but without these fundamentals, you could be a miserable millionaire, billionaire if you succeed. And of course, if you fail, you're going to be really miserable that you haven't really paid all of the any of the attention that you needed.
Right. No, and I can definitely see that. And it's just, now that you're putting the three words together, it's um, it's a little bit more interesting when you try and play around with the three concepts and the relationships to each other.
So let me tell you a little bit about goodness part. So
Yeah.
it's not a pie in the sky idea really. So I will take an example as an analogy that will help. If I were a businessman and interested in developing something with a purpose, and I would not go start a tobacco company or
Hmm.
cigarettes or cigars, knowing as much as we know about the harmful effects of those products. I would not. Even if there's a lot of money to be made, I would not, because my purpose would not allow me to do that. That's really what I mean by goodness.
Hmm.
Nobody's forcing you to provide a product that could be detrimental to somebody else's health, even if it means you could make a lot of money. So, on the other hand, there are folks out there that try to get you hooked on so you could smoke more cigarettes or more cigars so they could make more money. So, there
So,
is
to
that
what extent
goodness part there.
is the enterprise universe going to be self-policing in that sense, that we as consciousnesses are aware of our purpose, and therefore we're more likely to be responsible? Is that fair?
It is fair. As a matter of fact, when your purpose is grounded like what we have for the enterprise universe, you don't have to have certain legal or regulatory laws to make you better, because you're already better. You're already pursuing to be better and also set an example for everyone else. I do agree that we have governments that spend enormous amounts of funding, public money, to regulate these bad actors, so-called bad actors. I don't really know where they came from, how they evolved into, but I think I point that back to lack of purpose. if they
Right.
had a
And that's
purpose
really,
defined well.
that is really interesting. And I think it's also interesting that, in the Tao Te Ching, I think they say something like, where there is no Tao, there is morality, and where there is no morality, there's laws, kind of this kind of idea that the as you say, the purpose, if it's truly coming from the center, there is no need for morality or laws. It's self-governing, and it's coming from the core. I do feel though that this then the definition of goodness there, I think there's some education to be done about what is goodness, because we're so confused where people, I doubt if we could get a lot of people agreeing as to what goodness is, the definition of it. So maybe we're going to have to chat to folks quite a lot about what is goodness. Is that a fair statement, or do you
It
agree
is
with me that goodness isn't universally understood as to what's meant by goodness?
it's unfortunate, but it's true. There is confusion about human beings as individuals, but corporations have confusion too around them.
Yes.
And I put that confusion around goodness in that category simply
Yeah.
because they're unable to um, really understand and unravel what that really means.
And I guess then, this would also point back to a shareholder. So if a shareholder is investing in a company, he should really be investing in the vision or the purpose of the company, and making sure, because like that gets back to that moral obligation you have when you're engaging in investment. If there's you can't really walk away if the as you say, if you invest in a tobacco company and you say, well, it was just an investment, um, there's a moral obligation of all stakeholders in the enterprise, direct and indirect, I guess, to the purpose.
I will tell you this, Eamon, the shareholders with their short-term thinking
Mm-hmm.
may have driven some of these entrepreneurs on the wrong path simply
Right.
because they have this tunnel vision that I put X amount of dollars, I want to get some 10x, 5x return in so and so time. And in order to do that, they don't really kind of understand or care about the purpose and all of that. First of all, they don't understand that to begin with. And if they think that purpose or whatever that we're talking about comes in the way of their achieving short-term goals, then that becomes a problem. So as a matter of fact, I would say they may have contributed to a lot of the situation that entrepreneurs really deal with on a daily basis.
Right. And I think we'll have to discuss obviously more about how the enterprise universe is going to deal with these types of issues, so that entrepreneurs can have I guess, the freedom to pursue the goodness without being knocked off course, if you will, by factors that are perhaps urgent, but not in line with the purpose of goodness.
I will tell you this from my own experience, Eamon. We have known each other for over a decade now. And there were so many opportunities where people came to me and they said, we will do this and
So,
that.
yeah.
And, I did do one joint venture, which didn't work out simply because, again, the purposes were at different locations in space. So it did not work out. So I'm telling you from my own experience, you have to have a strong personality and the leadership qualities to say, hey, no, this is not what I want to do.
Okay.
It's not easy because the pressure is so much on you to achieve something for the time being in the short term, but that's exactly what it takes. As a matter of fact, when I started back in 2002, Eamon,
Yeah.
the enterprise universe was really not even a figment in my imagination. I wasn't thinking about that. So the path that I took on really evolved into the enterprise universe simply because at every point along that path, I had said no to certain, overtures where they would come in and direct my pathway and so forth. I said, no, thank you. That's really not what I wanted to do. But every entrepreneur will have to show that courage to withstand. And of course, I'm not saying investors are bad, or that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is they have to understand what is their purpose too in terms of
Yeah.
investing in companies and so forth. When
Right.
there is the purpose is gel, it goes a long way in terms of achieving some of the bigger goals that they're after.
And we know talk is cheap, James. You know, when it gets down to it, I think we're all like in when push comes to shove, it's as you say, it's hard. It's not always easy to make the right decisions and stick to good. I think we can all see times in our lives where perhaps we went for the shortcut and it maybe, and as you say, it. My personal experience is it doesn't work out, but that there's a degree of courage. I think that's that has to be recognized there. So we're actually coming up to the end of our time here, Dr. Stalker. Any last words before we head off and maybe talk about what we're going to do maybe for our next Q&A session?
Well, this has been great, Eamon, and
Yeah.
I want to kind of lead into the next session where I want to tell you about my purpose and how I shared that purpose with the enterprise universe and all of the partners that exist today and in the future coming into that bubble. But I want to leave you with this, my personal philosophy, what I actually live by. The purpose is great, but the philosophy that I have, that I live by, why I work so hard is one has to be able to extract the benefits of their talents and hard work in the benefit of others. That's my purpose. Every day that goes by that I'm not able to do, it drives me to do more. That's my personal philosophy that I live by. And I hope everyone that comes into my bubble, the enterprise universe, they're going to be inspired by it.
Well, that sounds great. Well, I'm certainly inspired by it, and I'm excited about learning more on our next chat. It's a very profound and highly interesting conversation we're having here, James. So I really appreciate you taking the time to spend with us.
Eamon, you have been a great friend, colleague all these years, and I cherish that. And so it's been mutually beneficial, I'm sure.
Thanks so much, man.